All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And we got a lot to talk about today. Andrew Yang's Humanity Forward project has already raised $2.9 million. It's actually pretty impressive.
Well, I guess total it'd bring it up to almost 6. I think they had announced 3 before they even went live as backing, and now additional 2.9.
Yeah, so that's off the charts in terms of initial seed money success. Also, AOC is apparently a Biden gal now. That's pretty interesting. She's kind of like, playing both sides of the fence. And then let's not forget that Tulsi is not only still in this race and super cool candidate, but she's kind of getting a little bit dogged by Bernie. And it looks like there was a snafu in American Samoa where she actually picked up a delegate they thought they lost, but then she got it, then she lost it. But now it's official. She's got it. So, Cody, tell us what's going on. Let's start with Andrew Yang.
All right, so this is coming in just this morning from Eugene Daniels, a Believer reporter from Politico. He actually wrote up a very nice piece. Of all the initial embargo lifting pieces that went up about the Humanity Forward thing yesterday, his in Politico is probably the best. Highly recommend it. Anyway, though, Andrew Yang's campaign, it's not his campaign, I guess Humanity Forward. It's weird. I want to say Andrew Yang's campaign because it's like the same infrastructure, but not. Humanity Forward reached out to him and alerted him that they had to raise an additional $2.9 million in the 24 hours after going live, and then $2 million of that is going to go to people as part of UBI project. If in general that is what we're looking at as operating here, about 1/3-ish is administrative, and then 2/3 will go to various projects they have going, I'm okay with that. That's better than some. I've seen some that run closer to 60-40 administrative. After we take most of the money and pay our admin, then we'll do the rest with our thing. I can't imagine Andrew Yang doing that in the first place, so I like seeing that none of that split. It's, again, super unscientific. I have no idea what it'll go on looking forward, but so far, $2 million. I mean, just think about that. In one day, in 24 hours, Andrew Yang, using his profile, he shifted it over to this thing. He has $2 million in funding for... that's $2 million that's literally going into people's pockets. When you donate to some charities, some nonprofits, you always wonder, I wonder if you donated $3, 2 of them are going to people as UBI right now.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
I'm thinking, I signed up for a monthly donation. That's really cool. I think that it's actually going. Now, again, we'll see more. I don't want to come out here just shill shamelessly for the thing, even though I do like Andrew Yang a lot. But I just think the bigger reason I wanted to highlight this in particular, aside from the shameless shilling, is it does show what Andrew Yang's profile. He wasn't raising $2.9 million in 24 hours anymore when he was running for president at the end. There was periods he was. By the time he wasn't raising that in days by the end of his campaign. Yeah. Now that, and I kind of feel the same way. It's just that presidential race is so daunting, and there always was a sense of I thought he could win if he did really good in Iowa and New Hampshire, and he didn't. So I'm like, he needed to steamroll early and often and just motivate so many votes. It didn't happen. But now that he's doing something, he could definitely wrap his arms around and give money to people and help people win congressional stuff. That is definitely what he could do with money. So I don't know. All hands on board. And clearly, though, I'm not alone. $3 million in 24 hours for something like this. I'm not an expert in nonprofits. I have to imagine, though, that's a pretty good day one. Especially for something when you think about if UBI is such a fringe, weird, wild thing that nobody wants. $3 million were backed before he went live, and he raised another $3 million in a day. Basically just by going on The View. And on The View, they mentioned it in the first segment and then didn't bring it up again. It's not like he had an hour-long promo on The View about it. He brought it up, and then it was mostly just social stuff from there on out. And it's very, very cool to see that success. And a couple things I want to bring up from that already as far as what it means for the early returns we can see. Number one, and this is what I like to see it right away, is Andrew Yang is already starting to do the first thing. Because you know what's free? What's free is putting your political cachet and weight behind people like a Mr. J.T. Schulten, who is running for Congress in Iowa's 4th District. I'm assuming if Yang's endorsing him, he's pretty positive on UBI. Yeah. So it's funny to see it has begun. Day one, and I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of this. One, I think because Andrew Yang might enjoy it a little bit. I think I have to imagine a couple weeks off campaigning, he kind of missed it. So being able to come out and help campaign for local people. And then 2, if he wants to run again in 24, which all signs point to he probably does, getting a coalition of people in Congress and in Senate that are looking forward to more Congress, right? But are UBI proponents from day one? that helps you. Just it's a good argument. I bring it up every time, but it's a good argument for your presidential campaign. One, they're going to endorse you, and two, you could say, I already have X amount of people in the House that support my idea.
Yeah, and also the other thing that I look forward to is I'm hoping they do this at least, and if they were smart, and I know they're smart, they'll obviously think the way I do, but we'll finally get data on UBI. When you and I first started following Andrew Yang and started following UBI, one of our biggest frustrations was, okay, well, we've got this 17th century example. We've got the Alaskan pipeline dividend, which is kind of similar, but it's not a universal basic income. It's a pipeline dividend. And we had all kinds of tangential examples. There were some failures of a basic income in Finland, but that wasn't a universal basic income. It was just a handout given out to the poor in an aging population that couldn't work. So when it didn't spur economic activity like we think universal basic income would in America, all of the naysayers would say, "Oh, see, it failed in Finland." It's like, well, no, that's because they were giving it to like 55-year-olds who'd had multiple hip surgeries and couldn't, participate in the workforce as a welfare program. And we don't want it just to be a welfare program. We want it to replace the welfare state. Yes. But there was such little data, and we basically developed an opinion based off of a lot of inferences and tangential suppositions that you could get from about 10 to 12 solid examples where something similar was tried.
Remember when Nixon was initially proposing it, somebody showed him a study from was it 16th century England came back on it?
It was the 1600s, 17th century England. Yeah.
Sorry. But that's the level of data we have out there in some of the stuff. That's a great point you brought up though. Just in general, funding, and I get even there'll be pilot programs, that's a great way to get data, but just it's one thing to just say we gave people money and that's the data we collected. It costs money to turn it into real data. Pretty cool to see they probably be doing the same.
Yeah, well, think about it. I mean, if they're giving 1,000 people, all right, $1,000 a month, then that's going to be costing, and that's a huge data set, you know what I'm saying? But that's $1 million a month. Well, or let's just say it's 500. I mean, we take as scientific evidence from God some of these phone polls that only have like 424 people, right? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So
no offense, it's 424 people that answer random, obviously soliciting callers in the middle of the day. It's a certain type of person who answers the poll.
So as much as we'd like to see more, if he could get 300, 400, 500 people on UBI and ask them a battery of scientific questions throughout this 2 or 3 year period leading up to 2024, in which he measured their stress level, in which he averaged how long their marriages lasted or didn't last, what their average health was according to their doctor in terms of blood pressure, this, that. Like, imagine if you could start gleaning statistics.
Well, I would love to see, how about this? How about non-UBI related income day one, non-UBI related income the final day? I wonder how many people actually, because I think one of the biggest things he has to, they always say it in studies, but I think he's going to need data on is, no, you understand, people don't start working less and make less money to rely heavier on UBI. They use this money to support them in making more. Because the thing is generally speaking, in a country like America, it's kind of like, if you're just doing the things you love enthusiastically more and more and more with more energy and time and resources at your hand, you generally do start acquiring just more money than you were before. Just the thing. People.
Well, yeah, like if
all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm teaching people to do this thing on the side because I have some free time and I make more money. I don't know.
Yeah, well, even you and I just thought, what would I do with $1,000 a month if I got it all of a sudden? Well, gosh, I'd put better soundproofing carpet in the studio. You know what I'm saying? Like I would do things that tangentially affected my ability to be a more efficient producer of video content. I'd be interested in maybe not having to do some of these other gigs so I could focus better on this one and learn this one and then make this one my replacement income. I'm not just going to think, oh, sweet, $1,000. I get to work $1,000 less as a freebie and chill. No, exactly. No, there's going to be like 3 guys like that in Ventura Harbor and at Venice Beach, and more power to them. The rest of us aren't that way. So anyway, the number one thing I'm looking for...
Investing in yourself, even when we ask people, that is like the number one response. What would you do with UBI? I will invest in myself. That always comes back as like number one.
Yes. So the number one thing I look forward to is the unavoidable data on UBI. This will really be the first time outside of Stockton where we haven't gotten a lot of data and where it's not a universal basic income chosen at random to all different socioeconomic groups.
I mean, technically, this isn't necessarily a universal one either because it's specific people. But beyond that, I just want to make sure we have time to get into something. Beyond that, I want to highlight a couple things. Now, this isn't a complete one. We'll do a larger video, a more complete one day. I feel bad because obviously we've been aware. I've definitely been keeping my eye on a lot of people running for UBI, various parts around the country, down ticket. One, especially I was waiting, like, when is Andrew Yang going to start throwing his weight behind him? But I wanted to highlight, one thing is interesting, an article I saw in The City, a couple other things. Again, I'm not leaving anyone off intentionally. We'll do a larger video with everyone. Just want to highlight a few people. It's very interesting. So one, this is an article that went up in The City, which, do you think people in New York City love the fact they live in New York City? Anyway, title, Yang Gang Effect Boosts New York Candidates Pushing Universal Basic Income. And it's really interesting. They mentioned, of course, here, James Felton Keith, who I'm sure a lot of you people, if you're interested in the kind of UBI thing, he's definitely been influential, and I've been seeing him for a while. I want to highlight one thing about him. It's really interesting. I've always loved this. Is because he actually ran, I want to bring this up too. He ran in 2018 on UBI. So people say like, oh, I remember becoming an Andrew Yang fan in early 2019. It was like into UBI. It's like, well, people were running on this. And like, it isn't like UBI didn't exist until then Andrew Yang came. It just, he was the first real large voice. But this is what I love about it. And this is one of the things I've always liked about the freedom dividend in and of itself and the idea of kind of universal basic income. And that is, it really works very well in like a capitalistic system in mind frame. And I love the framing here. Listen to this. Keith's plan is not a tax, his campaign site says, but it's a corporate productivity dividend, similar to what a company's stakeholders would get. His vision is that every American adult will receive $1,000 a month based on what he calls data reparations for personal information mined and sold by companies. I love that.
That's hardcore,
That
dude.
is, well, it's another, now I think
data reparations.
Anything, by the way, whenever I hear someone describe a plan in like a few sentences, it's always like, well, what about this thing? It's like, well, maybe read the description that's longer than 2 sentences and you'll figure it out. That being said, I just love that framing of it, just the idea of, it's one of the things that I think is really effective too, and I'm interesting to see. I hope something more we see from this Humanity Forward is the idea of more candidates running on UBI, and then that letting them use the messaging to kind of like, I think UBI works best as a messaging when you explain, not only is it applied universally, it kind of benefits people almost universally. At a certain point, $12,000 a year does stop realistically providing any benefit. But you know what? Those people are doing so well for themselves. Hey, people who say, why do they get it? I don't see why there can't be a program where you can offer to give up your UBI for like a tax credit or something else the government can incentivize rich people for that helps them. I don't know. Maybe not a tax credit. I don't know. But I just think it's really cool. But the other reason I wanted to bring it up, one, is that we have, candidates like James Felton and others. I think they mentioned in this article there's now 8 people running in New York, I think. New York State, according to the National UBI Caucus, 8 congressional candidates in New York State have signed a pledge to introduce legislation promoting the concept if elected. And that's just in New York State. It's one state out of 50. So that's very cool. And then also, really quickly, I wanted to give a shout out to a longtime friend of the show who's now running for Congress on UBI. That is our friend. I'm going to butcher their name. I believe Heidi Briones.
Hey.
I'm going to butcher their name. But there's another
Oh,
reason why.
dude, is that not like a Yang 2020
I know.
logo?
That's what I mean. But again, this is the thing I think is cool because this is someone, we've seen. She's been, a viewer of the show and a friend of ours for a while. And now, look at this, running for Congress. Not only running for Congress, verified on Twitter. So super running for Congress. But there's a bunch of people out there. Like I said, I don't want to forget anyone. I'll have the links so you guys can follow some of those people. We'll do a video trying to do a full one of everybody running and exactly what they're running on. But I thought it's very cool. We're already seeing it's day one, but we've already seen over the past few months a lot of people who were the legacy of Yang, I think, politically previously disengaged people who didn't see a lane for them in American politics today, who now see a lane for themselves.
Dude, that's cool.
Moving into that.
She's doing a UBI run. You go.
Oh, yeah?
Universal haircut. Oh, now universal healthcare. Now me and Heidi got to fight. Universally affordable healthcare.
Well,
affordable healthcare.
Well,
It's got to be private.
I think
Government can't own it.
I think
It's
another
gotta be
thing
private.
I like the idea of having a lot of people running on UBI and UBI being the thing is because UBI is less highly politicized. I can make a UBI argument to people that are staunch. I've done it. Like really staunch capitalistic conservative people who are like $1,000 a month. That's crazy. I'd be like, well, but like it's actually like a lot of capitalists came up with it because the idea is every business owner now has $1,000 a month. They don't have to necessarily you can start a business and run lean, and every customer walking into the door of a business has
$1,000 more to spend.
Yeah, like it's supposed to be like almost like a kind of middle class consumer stimulus.
Dude, honestly,
a lot of them hear that and they won't say, "Oh, it's the best idea ever," but they'll kind of go, "Oh, okay, I see that." Same thing as people on the left will be like, "Oh, it's gonna gut the social safety net," and it's like, well, no, you don't understand. Like a lot of people,
wait, but let's go.
They go, "Oh, okay, I see what you mean."
Let's go back to Heidi really fast because we got to give her a shameless plug now that she's running for Congress. That's awesome. So she's got the UBI platform, the universal health care. Yeah, we'll go to the mat on that one, Heidi. I'll take you. But I'm curious what democracy reform is. That's kind of cool, man. That
and I get all of the
democracy reform. I'd be curious to see. Hey, now that you're a candidate, we got to get you on Problem Solver Politics. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's one thing,
and spout your platform, girl.
That's one thing, hopefully, over the next few months, because it's fun. We get to follow Yang to his next thing, and it's going to be a series of smaller races.
She's going Zoltan here with the land value dividend. Interesting.
Very cool. Again, very cool. We'll
rock on.
Well, because I want to do a larger video in the next week or so. Kind of spoilers, I guess, going over, again, like a series of people. I want to make sure I try to get almost everyone that's currently running or had ran recently that we weren't able to get to earlier. Because I know there's a lot of people out there running. I always just feel bad about bringing any person up in specifics. I'm like, I know if I bring one person up, there's 3 I'm forgetting. But it's really happening. It's really cool to see. So that's all I wanted to show is that the money's coming in.
That's actually the second that I can think of, the second one of our viewers who's decided to run for office. And I'm the reverse of George Carlin on this. I'm like, boom, get in that race. You never know. And if you do, you can probably do some amazing, amazing good for our republic. So rock on, go Heidi.
Yeah. But like I said, that's the legs of the Yang 2020 movement. There's people that were like, I'm not going to put words in her mouth, but there's people across the board that were like, I'm not really interested in who I'm going to vote for going into like 2018. Then suddenly big on Andrew Yang. And now we have people running for office based on his ideas. You know what I mean? Like he really did take people from fairly politically disinterested to what is our next thing in like 14 months. So very cool. I think like I said, the legacy of Yang we will see will be this. It'll be what happens over the next few years. It'll be what happens in the 2022 midterms. I think that's the next real crazy thing. That's the other thing I kind of wanted to touch on there. You'll notice a lot of congressional candidates. Yeah, 2022 midterm is going to be crazy. There's going to be, let's see. I am going to be curious to see how many people Andrew Yang and the Humanity Forward movement are able to court into running on UBI in 2022. 2020, it's coming up. Like I said, there's people running in 2020 right now. That's good, but it's just give it a couple more years of development and growth, especially with some wins and gains right now. A lot of people maybe will run again in 2022 with a bigger base. Like, that's what I'm really curious to see, because that could be huge. Who knows, though? It could also be a very modest, tepid growth. You never know. But that, I have to imagine, is Andrew Yang's path. If he wants to run again in 2024 or down the line, I imagine step one, get people in the House as soon as possible, probably circle 2022 as that next real chance, right? Would you not agree? That's probably a good year and a half of ramping up, gearing behind a series of candidates to run on UBI. So, I don't know.
So anyway, hey, let us know what you guys think. Please comment below if you haven't liked, shared, or subscribed yet. Make sure you subscribe. And if you want to join the channel, make sure you join. It's cheap. It's only $5. And it's a really great way to make sure that we can continue getting you these videos and this content free of corporate sponsorship and influence. All right. And if you can, make sure you follow us on Twitter. It's worth even just signing up for Twitter. Even if you only follow one account on Twitter, you got to follow PSP Radio 1. We send out a ton of really funny clips, really funny memes, and all kinds of other content on our Twitter feed. So make sure that you follow us on PSP Radio 1 on Twitter. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next video.